Good evening, you're watching ReNEWS in English. I'm Sona Tumanyan. On a social network Truth Social, Trump has pushed a new agenda by favorably posting a video clip from Ilham Aliyev's speech at the Shushi Global Media Forum held in occupied Stepanakert. In the video, Aliyev directly lavishes praise on Trump, noting that he is the only United States president who has not started wars and helps to end them. Quoting Aliyev from the video, "We support the Trump administration and are grateful to him for the efforts to resolve the conflict with Armenia, and it's simply impossible to ignore Trump's particular activism in the normalization of Armenian-Azerbaijani relations. The 47th U.S. president believes that a miracle is near and that peace is tangible and achievable, according to his logic. From the so-called lease of the corridor to being a defender and partner of Israel." Detailed analysis in Anna Harutyunyan's report.
For the second time in the last few days, Donald Trump has spoken about the significant opportunity for an Armenian-Azerbaijani settlement. This time he made a more ambitious statement, claiming they have performed a miracle.
Armenia and Azerbaijan, we have performed a miracle there, and peace is quite close, if not already achieved.
American participation in the Armenian-Azerbaijani settlement was recently revealed. The Carnegie Endowment published an article about an idea to resolve the corridor issue with the participation of American business. The United States ambassador to Turkey also said that the road could be leased for 100 years to ensure that everyone benefits from it. Furthermore, commissioned analyses are appearing in the American press, which could be very appealing to Trump and his administration, as some have decided to calculate who would benefit from the American initiative to unblock the region.
Trump's statements are aimed at getting the process moving and preventing the parties from suddenly creating any problems. In this regard, Azerbaijan's statements could be considered bad news for the United States, especially Aliyev's recent statements were bad news, which suggests that the United States needs to increase pressure on Azerbaijan.
Regarding how acceptable U.S. mediation is for Iran, political scientists have different views.
Of course, it is not acceptable, but you saw that the United States, together with Israel, attacked Iran, violating all international norms. That is, they act with force, they do what they want. Iran can no longer interfere. The presence of the United States and the West in general in our region would be quite interesting for Iran. It would be interesting in the sense that Iran seems to have somewhat changed its rhetoric towards the West after the Iran-Israel conflict.
Against the backdrop of U.S. mediation efforts, the influence of Israel also plays a key role. According to Artur Hachikian, Israel's interests align with Azerbaijan's on the most crucial issues for Armenians.
The Israeli lobby supports the Azerbaijanis, and the Israeli lobby has absolute power in Washington. It controls everyone. The entire foreign policy of the United States is in the hands of the Israeli lobby. In other words, they played their cards right. They did everything right.
Political scientists have contradictory opinions about a supposed Azerbaijan, Israel, Syria, Turkey coalition. According to Artur Hachikian, it is not just a U.S. project.
Plus, the United States and Britain. I spoke about this at least 3 or 4 years ago. Yes, we can say that, and that alliance will now dominate our region. We cannot say such a thing. Turkey and Israel have very serious problems at the moment related to their actions in Syria.
Regardless of who has issues with whom, the disruption of the nearly 3-decade-long status quo in the region caused by the loss of Artsakh has opened significant opportunities for some and created major challenges for many. And now the superpowers and regional players are trying to reap the maximum benefit, or at least not lose what they still have. Anna Harutyunyan, ReOpen Media.
America's high-stakes bet on Zangezur, how a US-led corridor could slash Europe's energy costs and counter Russia. No, this is not a headline we invented. This time it is Forbes that is discussing the Zangezur corridor. The author of this Forbes publication is Güney Yıldız, a British analyst of Turkish origin. He notes that the American project to open the so-called Zangezur corridor could change not only the regional but also the global alignment of forces. Let's add another quote.
The United States has thrust itself into the center of a high-stakes diplomatic gamble that could fundamentally alter energy flows across Eurasia. Through its ambitious proposal for the Zangezur Corridor, a strategic 43-kilometer passage through Armenia's Sunak province, Washington aims to break decades-old deadlocks, diversify Europe's energy supplies away from Russia, and counter the growing influence of Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran in a critical transit region.
The author also recalls the following words of former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State James O'Brien: "A future built around Russia and Iran, the main players in regional security, is unstable and undesirable, including for the governments of Armenia and Azerbaijan." The article also discusses a 20–30% reduction in Iran's role in the region and notes that the Russian side could also suffer losses, referring to $10 to $20 billion annually. In any case, the author's conclusion is singular. The prospects for the creation of the Zangezur corridor are still quite murky. Armenia-Azerbaijani relations were also a topic of discussion in neighboring Georgia. Negotiations between the foreign ministers of Georgia and Azerbaijan have begun in Tbilisi. There are good prospects for peace, but to complete that path, it is necessary to exclude territorial claims from Armenia's constitution and to dissolve the OSCE Minsk group. Baramov stated this in Tbilisi. Let me inform you that as a part of two-day working visit to Tbilisi on July 21, Minister of Internal Affairs Arpine Sargsyan met with the Prime Minister of Georgia, Irakli Kobakhidze. The meeting was attended by Georgian Minister of Internal Affairs Gela Geladze and Republic of Armenia Ambassador to Georgia Ashot Sambadyan. The parties highlighted the friendly and good neighborly relations between Armenia and Georgia, as well as the close and effective cooperation between the law enforcement agencies of the two neighboring countries. In this context, the Prime Minister of Georgia welcomed the conclusion of negotiations on the text of the peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan and expressed hope that the document will be signed in the near future. While active meetings are taking place in Georgia, the European Parliament wrote on its X page that it does not recognize the current government of Georgia and declares that its accession process to the EU is de facto suspended until fair elections are held. The Moscow-Baku Cold War is gaining new momentum. An Azerbaijani criminal group involved in organizing illegal migration has been arrested in Moscow. 4 citizens of Azerbaijan who also hold Russian citizenship have been arrested. According to circulated information, the alleged criminals provided forged work permits and prepared fake migration cards. Law enforcement officials dismantled 2 underground laboratories and seized equipment, client databases, various stamps, passport of citizens from Central Asian countries, and other evidence confirming the illegal activity. Meanwhile, the Azerbaijani side is losing its status as a reliable ally of Russia. The head of Russia's National Anti-Corruption Committee, Kirill Kabanov, made the statement. On Telegram, Kabanov recalled that in recent months, Azerbaijan has taken a series of hostile steps, from diplomatic attacks to the assault on the office of the Russian Sputnik agency in Baku. According to Kabanov, the situation has been seriously influenced by Ilham Aliyev's openly anti-Russian rhetoric, which is support for Russia's enemies. That country and its leadership openly support our enemies, take an anti-Russian stance, and are part of an anti-Russian system which is mainly controlled by London and Ankara, Kabanov emphasized, and called to immediately review all financial and economic ties with Azerbaijan, limit the influence of Azerbaijani business structures and the community in Russia, and abandon illusions about eternal friendship.
During the media forum held in occupied Artsakh, Aliyev is handed the insignia of the Ukrainian army's branches. Accepting the gift with a warm smile and thanks, Aliyev makes another symbolic anti-Russian gesture. Some analysts believe that the cunning Aliyev is in a double game, intensifying pro-Ukrainian steps in parallel with the deepening of anti-Russian sentiments, only to later change the situation to increase his opportunities to bargain with Russia on various issues. After the arrests of alleged Azerbaijani criminals in Russia and Russian journalists in Azerbaijan, when it seemed the parties were playing to a conditional draw, Aliyev brought up last year's plane crash.
There can be no double game here because Azerbaijan has a vested interest in Russia's situation in Ukraine becoming more complicated.
On February 22, 2022, on the eve of the war against Ukraine, Russia and Azerbaijan signed a declaration on allied interaction, through which Baku deepened its military, political, and economic ties with Moscow. What has changed in these years? Are the tense Russia-Azerbaijan relations just momentary in nature, conditioned by a single unfortunate incident?
We cannot say that this is some emotional, temporary phenomenon because it has lasted lasted for more than half a year. This speaks to the fact that there is a negative trend. Yes, they are trying to maintain interstate relations at almost the same level. There are no economic sanctions, the level of diplomatic relations is not decreasing, and so on. But we see how each country is trying to fight against the other's influence in its own territory.
The day-by-day escalation of relations, as analysts note, has not yet affected the bilateral economic interests of Russia and Azerbaijan, for example, the transit of Russian gas through Azerbaijani pipelines to European countries. The political scientist also draws parallels with Turkey-Israel relations.
Russia-Azerbaijan relations, like all international relations, have different layers. For example, Turkey and Israel. At the diplomatic and political level, Turkey's rhetoric is clearly anti-Israeli, but at the same time, Azerbaijani oil reaches Israel via Turkish territory and the Ceyhan pipeline, supporting its economy and allowing Israel to continue the war.
After displaying the arrested Russian journalists with a tortured appearance and provoking the Russian public with other similar steps, Aliyev is bringing the topic of the plane that crashed in Aktau back to the agenda. He was also very emotional this January, making accusations and demands. But after a commemorative plaque for Haydar Aliyev was installed in a corner of Moscow in March, the younger Aliyev froze the topic of the plane crash. And now in occupied Stepanakert, he declares that Azerbaijan is preparing to apply to an international court against Russia, which has not admitted its guilt, has not punished those responsible, and has not paid compensation to the victims' families, the wounded, or Azal Airline.
There were 2 people on the plane who had received shrapnel wounds. Therefore, the idea that the plane could have been shot down by a Ukrainian drone is absolutely ridiculous. We know what happened. Russia's airspace was not closed. It was closed a few minutes after the plane was shot down. It is clear that this is not the problem. This is a pretext for Aliyev and Azerbaijan because there were other problems in their relations, and Russia and Azerbaijan already had their own modus vivendi on how they should solve their problems.
Analysts recalled that by leaving Artsakh, Moscow not only failed to secure its interests, but also began to lose its position throughout the entire region. Moscow's relations are becoming strained with both Baku and Yerevan, and they have never been restored with Tbilisi. Instead, another player, Turkey, is gradually establishing itself in the region, continuously expanding its influence in the zones where Russia used to dictate the rules of the game. Monica Hayrian, Vardan Pagosian, ReOpen Media.
State Duma Deputy Zatulin also spoke about Russian-Azerbaijani relations, noting that in the Russian Federation they have finally understood that Azerbaijan is not what it tried to present itself as in its relations with Moscow. For a long time, they deceived us with talk of strategic partnership and being allies, and today Azerbaijan no longer has the need to present itself as a close ally of Russia, noted the State Duma deputy. Joint Russian-Iranian military exercises are beginning in the Caspian Sea. Let's note that Iran declares almost every day that no corridor can violate Armenia's sovereignty. For instance, just today, the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs stated that the creation of routes must not, even by a single millimeter, violate any country's sovereignty, its territorial integrity, and internationally recognized borders, or lead to a change in the geopolitics of the region. Let's also note that the issue of the corridor and the signing of a peace treaty are at the center of attention of the world's major powers, and this is no longer just at the level of talks.
Russia and Iran, as countries on opposite sides of the Caspian Sea, have begun joint naval exercises. The increase in the level of interaction between the militaries is planned.
The purpose of participating in these exercises is to increase cooperation and to test the forces and strength of the two countries.
However, by a surprising coincidence, the exercise coincides with intense regional developments. From Artsakh, a territory once controlled by the Armenians, allies of the Russians, and later by Russian peacekeepers, and which is now completely under Turkish Azerbaijani rule, Aliyev is threatening Russia with international courts and calling on Ukrainians not to surrender. Meanwhile, Iran is now warning Turkey and Azerbaijan almost daily that even if some roads pass through Armenian territory, they cannot violate Armenia's sovereignty. In Azerbaijan, this exercise is viewed as a warning from these two powers directed specifically at them. The press is discussing that Russia and Iran are sending a warning message to Aliyev, but this observation is not so clear-cut.
That is completely unrelated, and Azerbaijan isn't important enough for the two regional superpowers to prepare for war against it like this, especially with Turkey by its side. I consider it a province, not a country.
A planned event or a political message, the Russian-Iranian exercises cannot, in reality, be aimed solely at curbing Azerbaijan's growing ambitions. The issue is much broader. In this phase of a major realignment of forces in the region, Russia and Iran are trying to resist the growing Turkish influence, in a broader sense, and the West's plans. And in this regard, the South Caucasus is only one of the fronts of competition, although perhaps the most important one. David Genjoyan, ReOpen Media.
Gaza is at the center of the international newsfeed. The supply of humanitarian aid has been limited and the situation is catastrophic. The foreign ministers of Iran and Turkey also had a phone conversation. Araqchi and Fidan spoke about the situation in the Gaza Strip and in Syria and also paid attention to the upcoming negotiations in Istanbul regarding Iran's nuclear program. The goings-on of our spinning planet in one report.
After the Defense Army's orders to evacuate from the central regions of Gaza, Israeli tanks entered Deir al-Balah, where ground operations had been nearly non-existent during the 21-month war between Israel and Hamas. According to the Gaza health system, 13 people were killed in Israeli strikes in the past day, including 2 women and 5 children. The foreign ministers of 25 countries, including France, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Japan, condemned the unacceptable humanitarian situation in a joint statement. Quote, "It is horrifying that, according to the UN, 875 Palestinians have been killed while trying to receive aid," their statement said. Israel called the statement detached from reality. In his address on Monday evening, Volodymyr Zelensky announced that the next round of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine is scheduled for Wednesday. The previous 2 rounds of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine led to the exchange of prisoners of war and the bodies of the deceased, but they failed to stop the war. U.S. President Donald Trump announced earlier this month that he is seriously considering imposing large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs against Russia if Moscow does not sign a final peace agreement. Last night, Russia carried out large-scale air attacks using 426 drones and 24 missiles. The attacks focused on 3 main regions, Kyiv, Ivano-Frankivsk, and Kharkiv. In Kyiv, a central metro station, as well as residential and non-residential buildings were damaged. 1 person was killed in Kyiv, and there are wounded. Ivano-Frankivsk, located in western Ukraine, suffered its heaviest attack since the beginning of the war. In Kharkiv, a fire broke out at an industrial facility. In the last 24 hours, Russian forces have registered advances in the Sumy, Toretsk, Pokrovsk, and Zaporizhia directions, taking control of another 21 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. In the future, Tehran may consider the possibility of holding direct negotiations with Washington, announced Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi to the American television channel Fox News. Responding to a journalist's question about Tehran's readiness to hold direct talks with the U.S., the head of the foreign ministry noted that such a scenario is possible in the future. Araghchi emphasized that everything will depend on whether Washington is ready to speak with Tehran on equal terms, based on mutual respect and mutual interests. The minister also noted that at this moment, the uranium enrichment facilities are not operating, but they will definitely resume work. Citing these statements by Abbas Araghchi, Donald Trump wrote on the social network Truth Social that the United States is ready to destroy Iran's nuclear program facilities again if necessary. In addition, the president harshly criticized the CNN television company, which had initially cast doubt on his information regarding the results of the operation. Fake news CNN must immediately fire its lying correspondent and apologize to me and the wonderful pilots who destroyed Iran's nuclear facilities. CNN is the network that is losing a lot in the ratings, Trump wrote. The UN has expressed concern over the arrests of women and girls in Afghanistan who allegedly did not comply with the dress code established by the Taliban authorities. Quote, "These incidents contribute to the further isolation of women and girls, create an atmosphere of fear, and undermine public trust," the UN mission added. The UN mission did not release the number of those arrested, but called on the Taliban government to repeal policies and practices that restrict the rights and fundamental freedoms of women and girls, particularly the ban on education after the 6th grade. In 2022, the Taliban government issued a decree calling on women to show only their eyes and recommending they wear a head-to-toe burqa.
At a regular meeting of the Coordinating Council of the Office of the Ombudsman for the Cultural Heritage of the Armenian Highland, a decision was made to establish the Office of the Defender of the Cultural Heritage of Artsakh. Hovik has been appointed as the Defender of the Cultural Heritage of Artsakh. Until the appointment of the new defender, the work of the Office of the Defender of the Cultural Heritage of the Armenian Highland will be organized by the Coordinating Council. And to conclude, a little smile, rescuer Jean-Claude Van Damme. This, of course, is a joke. A firefighter in Kazakhstan has repeated Jean-Claude Van Damme's famous stunt. He performed a perfect split between 2 moving fire trucks, thereby repeating the stunt shown in a 2013 Volvo commercial. For more updates, follow us on YouTube, Telegram, Instagram, X, and Facebook. Daily news and full coverage are available on our official website. I am Sona Tumanyan. Stay informed with ReNews.